Then, when it was the 6th night, her sister, Dunyazad, told her to finish the story, and Shahrazad said, "If the king permits me." "Go on," he replied, and she continued. "I have heard, O fortunate king, that the fisherman told the Ifrit, 'Had you spared me, I would have spared you, but you wanted nothing but my death, and so now I am going to destroy you by throwing you into the sea here, imprisoned in this bottle.'" The Ifrit cried out, "I implore you, in God's name, fisherman, don't do this. Spare me and don't punish me for what I did. If I treated you badly, do you for your part treat me well, as the proverb says. You who do good to the evildoer, know that what he has done is punishment enough for him. Do not do what Amama did to Attica." "What was that?" asked the fisherman, but the Ifrit said, "I cannot talk while I am imprisoned, but if you let me out, I shall tell you the story." The fisherman said, "Stop talking like this, for I shall certainly throw you into the sea and I am never going to release you. I pleaded with you and begged you, but all you wanted to do was to kill me, although I had done nothing at all to deserve this, and far from doing you any harm, I had helped you by freeing you from your prison. When you did that to me, I realized that you were an evildoer. Be sure that, when I throw you into the sea, if anyone brings you out, I will tell him what you did to me and warn him, so that he may throw you back again, and there you will stay until the end of time or until you perish." "Free me," pleaded the Ifrit. "This is the time for generosity, and I promise you that I shall never act against you again, but will help you by making you rich." At this, the fisherman made the Ifrit promise that were he freed, far from hurting his rescuer, he would help him. When the fisherman was sure of this and had made the Ifrit swear by the greatest name of God, he opened the bottle and the smoke rose up, until it had all come out and had formed into a hideous shape. The Ifrit then picked the bottle up and hurled it into the sea, convincing the watching fisherman that he was going to be killed. The man soiled his trousers, crying, "This is not a good sign." But then his courage came back and he said, "God Almighty has said, 'Fulfill your promise, for your promise will be questioned.' You gave me your word, swearing that you would not act treacherously to me, as otherwise God will do the same to you, for he is a jealous God who bides his time but does not forget. I say to you what Duban the Wise said to King Yunnan. Spare me and God will spare you." The Ifrit laughed and told the fisherman to follow him as he walked ahead. This the fisherman did, scarcely believing that he was safe. The pair of them left the city, climbed a mountain, and then went down into a wide plain. There they saw a pool, and after the Ifrit had waded into the middle of it, he asked the fisherman to follow him, which he did. When the Ifrit stopped, he told the fisherman to cast his net, and the man was astonished to see that the pond contained colored fish, white, red, blue, and yellow. He took out his net, cast it, and when he drew it in he found 4 fish, each a different color. He was delighted by this, and the Ifrit said, "Present these to the Sultan, and he will enrich you. Then I asked you in God's name to excuse me, since at this time I know no other way to help you. I have been in the sea for 1800 years, and this is the first time that I have seen the face of the land." After advising the fisherman not to fish the pool more than once a day, he took his leave, speaking words of farewell. Then he stamped his foot on the earth and a crack appeared into which he was swallowed. The fisherman returned to the city, full of wonder at his encounter. He took the fish to his house, where he brought out an earthenware bowl, filled it with water and put them in it. As they wriggled about in the water, he placed the bowl on his head and went to the palace as the Ifrit had told him. When he came to the king and presented him with the fish, the king was astonished, for never in his life had he seen anything like them. He gave orders that they were to be handed over to a slave girl who was acting as cook but whose skill had not yet been tested, as she had been given him 3 days earlier by the king of Rum. The vizier told her to fry the fish, adding that the king had said that he was testing her only in the hour of need, and that he was putting his hopes in her artistry and cooking skills, for the fish had been given him as a present. After issuing these instructions, the vizier went back to the king, who told him to hand the fisherman 400 dinars. After he had passed over the money, the man stowed it inside his clothes and set off back home at a run, falling, getting up and then stumbling again, thinking that this was all a dream. He bought what was needed for his family, and then returned to his wife in joy and delight. So much for him, but as for the slave girl, she took the fish and cleaned them. Then, after setting the frying pan on the fire, she put the fish in it, and when one side was properly cooked, she turned them on to the other. All of a sudden, the kitchen wall split open and out came a girl, with a beautiful figure and smooth cheeks, perfect in all her attributes. Her eyes were darkened with kohl and she had on a silken keffiyeh with a blue fringe. She was wearing earrings. On her wrists were a pair of bracelets, while her fingers were adorned with rings set with precious gems, and in her hand she held a bamboo staff. Thrusting this into the pan, she asked, "Fish, are you still faithful to your covenant?" At which the cook fainted. The girl repeated her question a second and a third time, and the fish raised their heads from the pan and said, "Yes, yes," in clear voices, and then they recited, "If you return, we return. If you keep faith, then so do we, but if you go off, we are quits." At that, the girl turned the pan upside down with her staff and left through the hole from which she had come, after which the wall closed up behind her. The cook recovered from her faint, and saw the 4 fish burn like black charcoal. She exclaimed, "His spear was broken on his very first raid," and fell unconscious again on the floor. While she was in this confused state, the vizier came and saw that something had gone badly wrong with her, so much so that she could not even tell what day of the week it was. He nudged her with his foot, and when she had recovered her senses, she explained to him, in tears, what had happened. He was astonished, and exclaimed, "This is something wonderful." He then sent for the fisherman and, when he was brought in, the vizier told him to fetch another 4 fish like the first ones. The fisherman went to the pool, cast his net, and when he drew it in, there were 4 fish like the first. He took them to the vizier, who brought them to the cook and said, "Fry these in front of me so that I can see what happens." The cook got up, prepared the fish, put the pan over the fire and threw them into it. As soon as she did, the wall split open and out came the girl, looking as she had done before, with a staff in her hand. She prodded the pan and asked, "Fish, fish, are you true to your old covenant?" At this, all the fish raised their heads and repeated the lines, "If you return, we return. If you keep faith, then so do we, but if you go off, we are quits." Morning now dawned and Shahrazad broke off from what she had been allowed to say.